Adventure in History. I'm your host, Shane McInnes. Giant nerd, history lover, teacher, collector of comic books. I don't know if that falls under giant nerd or not. Hello to my lovely wife. Hello to everybody else in the room. Hope everybody's doing well. Happy Tuesday to you, though days seem to not really matter so much anymore now that we're all under COVID stuff. I don't know, days might matter to you. I'm technically on summer break, though I don't really feel it. It is an odd thing for me. I've been just about as busy during break as I was when I was at work. Mostly because I'm nitpicking on stuff, and you know how that goes. But hope everybody is doing well. Hope the day has seen you happy. And wanted to go through all the fun little stuff about the show, as always, just to let everybody know, hey there, lagger. History! Hey, David Peterson. What's up, man? Once again, just to let everybody know what the show is, this is a conversation. This is not a lecture. I am a teacher in real life. I teach college history, but this room is a safe place where people can goof around and laugh and ask questions and talk a little bit about history. Tonight is our second viewer request episode. This is something that I've started doing where I actually take suggestions from the audience and let people say more or less what they want to hear me talk about. Hey, look at there with the adventure hats. Nice. And with the mouse guard emotes. I wonder if I can do emotes in my own channel. Oh man, this is going to be hard. Okay, yeah, I've never tried to do that before. Adventure. There we go. What object do you find in a remote, desolate, exotic island? At Shane McInnes. I don't know. On my Minoan Palace? I don't know what you find on a remote, desolate, exotic island. Fill me in. There we go. Use some points. Awesome. Yes, adventure points. The TV that it is in. Aww. Ban me freely. No. Nobody needs to be banned for bad jokes. I'm sure that I'll get to my own fair share of bad jokes by the end of the discussion tonight. Which brings us to our topic, which is of somewhat interesting importance to, I guess, my viewers, because this is, again, another one of these viewer-requested topics, and we will be discussing the Maya people tonight. So the topic heading here is Tikal me maybe, which is a bit of a bad joke on my own part, reference to the adorable Carly Rae Jepsen song. But it is also a super deep, giant, nerdy Maya reference. And I am interested to see if anybody can work out exactly how deep that rabbit hole goes. Oh, I thought you were going to do the history of Michigan's ownership of the Upper Peninsula. I mean, if that's something that you want to talk about, David, we can throw it on. Nothing is out of bounds. We can talk about basically anything. History is a really, really big topic. We can cover all sorts of fun stuff. Or the history of Flint, Michigan. Or see Stephen King's books for reference, yeah. We could do some use history stuff. It's all interesting out there. All right. So again, the reference there to the Carly Rae Jepsen song is actually a double level weird nerd reference. And I'll leave it to my audience to find out. I don't know if I will fully reveal it if nobody actually figures it out. I like throwing little Easter eggs out there for people. So there's a big one. Go see what you can do with it. As always, you can send me an email with anything that you run across. If you have any sort of history question, you read something in the news that you want some additional information about, if you want to just send me something that you did and say, here, check this cool thing out, send me an email. You can also follow me on Twitter and Instagram at some history guy. See, I'm not even super pretentious. I'm not the history guy. I'm just some history guy, right? Full disclosure, the history guy was already taken. So I want all of the history of the Bronze Age, geometric, archaic, classical, Roman, and Byzantine Greece. Yeah, I mean, eventually. I don't know if we want to spend... oh man, that's an entire class or two. And when I say class here, I mean like a semester's worth of work. That's a lot of stuff. We'll hit on all of that stuff as we move on. We're moving through the timeline in the regular full version episode that happens on Thursday nights at 7 p.m. CST. Which on Thursday we'll be talking about Hinduism, which is a horrible name for a religion that is much more complicated than just one name. And we'll talk about that. But so tonight we're talking about the Maya. As always, if you have any questions along the way, please make sure you put those in the chat. Just to be clear, there is a little bit of a lag between the chat and my video, so if you type it, I might not immediately be able to figure out what's going on. It might take me just a second. I'll also try to finish the sentence that I'm in before I answer questions. Tuesdays are the darkest timeline. I don't know if they're the darkest timeline. I think 2020 might be the darkest timeline. Yay, Hinduism. I studied that briefly at university. Yeah. World religions was one of the classes I had to take just to get into the university. Yeah, I really enjoy religion as a history student, as a sociology student, as just a person that likes to understand people. I've spent a whole lot of time studying religions, and I think that it's really hard to understand a group of people until you understand how they understand the world, if that makes any sense, right? So if you look at what's happening in India today with their leader, Narendra Modi, I'm pretty sure I made his first name bad there, but his last name is Modi. He is pushing a particular brand of Hindu nationalism, and it's having a sort of a ripple effect on a lot of the other cultures inside of India. To wrap up Buddhism, we watch Groundhog Day as a way to put reincarnation into perspective. Hey, that's actually not that bad of an idea. You get stuck in a cycle until you make the right choices, and then you get out of the cycle. I like that a lot, Galinuva. That's a clever little usage there. As long as you're self-serving, you're not picking the right thing, and your karmic weight is pulling you down. There's a lot of wisdom in that. Your teacher was onto something there. I seem super relaxed today. It was a pretty easy day. I shouldn't have, but I ended up taking a bit of a nap. There was a pretty big storm that came through, and the lightning was popping pretty bad, so I shut everything down and got very still. And I haven't been sleeping very well for about the last couple of weeks, so I'm sure he's still alive. Oh, he was... Oh, well, I hope that he's alive too. Right? And then I just had some pizza for dinner, so, it's all great. Everything's happy today. Couple more announcements, and then we'll sort of get into the meat of things. Once again, if you are interested in knowing when I'm going online, you can click the little heart button, which is down here in the corner. And if you want to get specific notifications of when I go live, you can click the little bell right beside that and get notifications set. And if you are so inclined, if you have Amazon Prime, or if you have Amazon TV, if you're an international viewer, you can link those accounts to Twitch and gain access to a free subscription that you can use for the streamer's channel of your choice. People like my good friend in the channel, David Peterson. Let me give David Peterson a shout out here. David Peterson is an incredibly gifted artist and illustrator and genuine good guy. So if you want to watch some people do some art, go over, check him out. But that subscription goes towards me buying cooler stuff for the stream itself. My initial goal here, while we're still small, is to put 100% of all proceeds from Twitch back into my channel. I'm meh at best. He is an honest guy, except when it comes to criticizing himself. But I think all creative people are like that, right? We all sort of give ourselves the short end of the stick. I love the aesthetic of my stream, very attractive for the eye. your stream is ideal for my taste. And that's the cool thing about it, right? History people like history stuff, but hopefully everybody can get involved. Tell your mom, tell your friends, tell your enemies. Heck, we might work out the problems of the world over Twitch, right? Maybe not. All right. So we're talking about the Maya people. And these people are an interesting group. I quite like the Maya. One thing I will say, the name of the people, like the actual culture, you're reaching out to your enemies right now. One thing about the description here, the name of the people, the actual group of people like Slavs or Bulgars, the name of the culture is the Maya culture. Mayan, with an N on the end of it, is the proper adjective version. So people use this somewhat incorrectly, and that's okay. I'm not going to get super semantic, but just as long as everybody knows, the people themselves are called the Maya. And they're still around, by the way. Millions and millions of people alive today in several countries in Central and South America. I'm sorry, Central America. Ugh. My brain is not using the right descriptor words. In places like Mexico and Guatemala and Belize, there are still lots of people that are ethnically related to the Maya people. They did not just disappear. The Spanish pretty much just destroyed all of their cities, but I'm getting ahead of myself. All right, so... And I will apologize. We are still puppy sitting my in-law's puppy, and she is used to living in a house that is very far out in the country and not having any neighbors. And we have neighbors on all sides of us. So anytime any of our neighbors are doing anything, this disturbs Pearl, and she has a very shrill, yappy little bark. So if you hear anything that sounds like an ice pick being driven into your eardrum, that's probably Pearl. She's a sweet puppy, but she just doesn't know how to handle neighbors. How come 100 to 200 criminals, pirates conquered millions of people? Guns. Guns and cannons. It's hard to do. They disappeared culturally though, right? Not completely. All right. So ethnically, when we're starting to talk about the Maya, where are we going to start seeing these genetic markers that I keep talking about? I always try to identify the origins of people as a group of individual ethnic identities. These, again, are somewhat problematic, but they help us scientifically understand about the boundaries of where we're talking about. And again, North America and South America are being populated by migrations somewhere from about 20,000 BC all the way up through about 14,000 BC. So about 6,000 years of migration history. The individual group of people that will go on to be the Maya are going to show up around the 8,000 BC mark. And they're going to move rather quickly. This is one thing that a lot of people, especially in Western cultures, around the age of exploration, the 14, 15, 1600s, one of the things that they got really wrong is this concept that the people of the New World were actually very, very backwards. And you can say that when you have something around a 26,000 year head start on people, right? But the culture of a lot of these Central American people is actually very, very advanced if you put them on a comparative timeline. So if you show something like the first village of people in the Middle East, and then you show how long it takes them to get to the big city level, you're looking at something that's a span of time about 3,000 years. But if you look at the Maya people, the first villages of their sort of organization are going to show up around 1800 BC, and they have cities less than 2,000 years later. So they're actually moving comparatively more quickly than a lot of these really old cultures. So we can't look at these New World cultures like the Maya, the Aztec, the Olmec, the Toltec, or even people like the Anasazi or the Iroquois, which is another problematic name. We know how all that is, but I use it because other people are familiar with the term. A lot of these people were on a much faster timeline than people in the old world were. So we can't look backwards at them and call them idiots or stupid. We have to understand that certain places were just populated first, right? So when you start seeing Maya cities, there are a few different phases of sort of cultural development, right? And there is a pretty big period of time that's referred to as pre-classical Maya. That term is falling out of use a little bit as we discover more different people that were living around this time. It turns out that there was an entire sprawling culture of trade that, in its own, was pretty impressive. So if you want to talk about this early phase of the Maya, there are a few cities that you're going to start showing as pretty big and pretty important. And most of these are going to be in the modern day country of Guatemala. So I have pulled up Google Earth here, and I left on the regional boundaries for the moment. We'll cut these off in just a second. I don't know how well everyone is versed in Central American and the southern part of North American geography here. And I'm not trying to insult anybody. This is just not a topic that's taught very much in schools. So when I start saying places like Guatemala and Belize and San Salvador, I want to make sure everybody knows where I'm talking about. So this portion of the map right here is the southern part of Mexico. This is the Yucatan Peninsula. The country here, Belize, is going to be home to quite a few of these large Maya cities. Also, the region right here called Guatemala. You're going to see some cities down in Honduras and El Salvador, but the majority of the really big Maya cities are going to be sort of in a circle that more or less is going to comprise this region right here. And Guatemala, especially this region right in here, which is referred to as the Petén Basin. There's a river that runs through this area. It's going to be very fertile ground. You can see just by looking at it from space that it's very nice and green and fertile and lush. And you're going to start seeing these cities pop up, and they have really odd-sounding names. These are not names that have Indo-European linguistic roots, so they're going to sound a bit odd to our ear sometimes. One of the biggest of these early Maya cities is, and I spelled that wrong, Kaminalhuyu, which is such a great name. There's another big one called Nakbe. These are both in modern-day Guatemala. You can still go visit a lot of these, especially Kaminalhuyu here. It's very well preserved. Has had a lot of different excavation works being done there. Lots of really neat archaeological pieces excavated from there. Pieces of really important cultural importance to the Maya, because we also have found pre-classical writing, the earliest evidences of the writing of the Maya people at some of these places. So you get these big cities, and the cities that we're talking about right here are still pretty big. I mean, we're talking about cities that have tens of thousands of residents. And this is happening, mostly these cities are going to be established somewhere right around the 1000 BC mark. The population is going to grow fairly steadily, and by the time you get to about 750 BC, you're going to start seeing these big cities like Kaminalhuyu and Nakbe become regional sort of trade hubs. And they're starting to exert a little bit of that understanding that we've talked about in the past about transitioning from just a city to more like a city-state. And the kings of these early cities are going to start initially as your good old warrior king, right? This is an idea that we've talked about. Your first big rulers are the guys that can just go beat everybody up. And I have some images of one of these that I can show you. Let me switch over to images here. So this is a stela that we found at, and I say we because I'm just assuming that everybody thinks that I'm an archaeologist. I am not a classically trained archaeologist. I do not have a degree in archaeology. I have been to archaeological digs and done archaeological kind of stuff, but I am not an archaeologist by trade. I'm one step above the 1800s British people because I actually care about foreign people's cultures. I'm not going to go loot everything. Anyway, so this is a stela from Kamen and what we see on it is a king who is decked out in war gear. And he's wearing the skull of a bird as the helmet. His eye here is kind of coming through the eye hole. You can see him wearing his big sort of sash here that is a jaguar pelt. And you see him carrying this nice big sharp sword. Right, so this is your good old-fashioned, I'm going to beat you up, and then make a big old towering stela that lets you know how cool I am. He's got another weapon down here. These are sorts of things that you find in a lot of these early Maya cities because they're going to be, again, this warrior king concept. So the people that you're going to start seeing are going to hit that problem of running into population versus being able to control the population, right? So the people of the rulers of the Maya are going to hit that level of needing religious reinforcement somewhere around 400 BC. And you're going to start seeing rulers depicted as related to the gods. You're going to see rulers depicted as children of the gods. And we should be comfortable with this concept now of how people that are trying to control large groups sort of bring religion along with them to act as a herding tool. But you're also going to start seeing temples and organized priesthoods in the beginning of the big Maya pantheon, which we'll talk about a little bit more later on. Evidence of the Maya writing system is going to also start during this period of time. And we start seeing some of the earliest examples of writing around 200 BC. There were other cultures in the region of the Maya that have writing as well, especially the Olmec. The Maya writing is a type of hieroglyphic. It's not what you might consider as neat. And when I say neat, I mean sort of stylistically, artistically designed as other hieroglyphics that you might see, especially Egyptian hieroglyphics. But they are standardized. They have a wide vocabulary. And what we're looking at right now is actually Maya writing and Maya hieroglyphs. So some of these you can see are faces, and you see there are hands that are some of the symbols, also sheaves of grain, ears of corn, which of course they called maize, which was one of their staple crops. And these little clusters of symbols are going to represent either words or names or proper nouns. And this is how they're going to record their history. And the Maya language was discovered when we first started digging stuff up archaeologically, and in the early 1900s it was translated. This actually is a number reference. So the Maya numerical system is also fairly advanced. They have a very, very big mathematics system. This bar right here represents 5, and these little dots each represent 1. So this is the number 8 right here. And this might represent the name of a king or a particular building. The Maya were really, really great when it comes to helping us understand themselves. One of the things that the Maya did in most of their big buildings was actually write on the side of the building who was the king when it was built and when it was finished building, which is great for archaeologists when we start go digging around trying to put all of the stuff in context. Because we can even tell how many buildings were completed in certain cities during the year. It's a great help for us to understand these people. But I did mention that there are other people in the region of these pre-classical Maya, especially the Olmec. And if you've ever seen any of these really big heads, or if you've ever seen Legends of the Hidden Temple, a great little show when I was a kid on Nickelodeon, you should know what Olmec is. He was the guardian of the hidden temple. But these are actually big megalithic stone structures that are carved by the Olmec people. The Olmec people were a identify a group of people that lived a little bit more north in the southern part of Mexico and into Belize, somewhat into Guatemala, but a little bit more north in the big cities that we're talking about in Guatemala, like Kamanalhuyu or Nakbe. And the Olmec are going to have a pretty big influence linguistically. There are some of the Olmec words that transfer into the Maya language. There are also some of the sort of cultural artifacts, types of building, particular buildings, dress styles, pottery styles that move back and forth between the Olmec and these pre-classical Maya. So, yeah, Olmec. Gotta love Olmec, right? I love that show. I'm a giant heartthrob for that show. They're supposed to be bringing it back, or maybe there was going to be a movie reference. I don't know. Something about that happened. I should probably start typing some of this out. So Olmec are the people that I'm talking about here. So around this 200 BC to 200 AD period of time, no, supposedly a reboot with adults in an actual jungle or something. I mean, I'll probably watch it. There's a little soft spot in my heart for Legends of the Hidden Temple. I'm a giant nerd, though. So I thought that show was called Survivor. Yeah. I'm sure that they've probably done Survivor Maya edition or something like that. I haven't watched an episode of Survivor since probably the second season. Back when I was in high school or something like that, you know. I know they're on like season 30 something now, or I can't remember where they are. Anyway, but welcome, Fid. I see it. Oh, Legends. Not Survivor. LOL. Okay, I'm with you. So you're going to start seeing a sort of formalization of the Maya world, and this happens between about 200 BC and about 200 AD. So for this period of 400 years, you're going to start seeing a lot of the bedrock of what will go on to be what we call classical Maya civilization. You're going to start seeing a lot of cultural centers build up. Kamanalhuyu is going to be still a very, very large and important city. There's going to be another one called El Mirador. This is in modern Spanish. But these are going to have big populations. They're going to be cultural centers, especially for religious purposes. You're going to start seeing a lot of the written Maya history and mythology sort of formalized or codified. One of the really cool things about the Maya is this written language that they have. And we actually have a set of their creation myths and other myths called the Popol Vuh, which you can go find on the internet for free if you just Google that. What are you doing, puppy? Would you stop that? Thank you. Oh, puppy noises. Anyway, so you're going to start seeing a lot of this mythology written down. What are you doing? I don't know if you all hear the puppy. She is groaning because she is scratching her own ear. So she's getting really into the ear scratches. I don't know what she's doing. Anyway, you're going to start seeing a lot of the fun little elements of Maya culture show up. There's going to be, of course, the symbol of the jaguar that becomes very popular. You're going to see this tied with both mythology and kingship. You're going to see the advance of Maya art, especially big murals, which can be both carved in stone and done in a bit of a fresco sort of technique. I've got a picture of one of those that I'll show you towards the end of the discussion. But you're also going to start seeing the sort of formulation of the world as they understand it. So you're going to start seeing them apply their mathematics to the world, and you're going to see the development of one of the more famous but misunderstood artifacts of the Maya world, which is their calendar, which looks like this. And I know that everybody has probably seen the calendar, and you're like, what the devil's going on here? It's not as complicated as it sounds to try to... when the professor stops to scold a puppy. Yeah. Oh, the puppy. She's such a handful. Anyway, These concentric circles are going to represent different things. The circles are going to represent days, and then they don't really have exact months like we do. They have different Maya words that I won't bombard you with, but they have a period of time that's roughly like 2 weeks long. It's 13 days long. And then they have another period of time that is sort of like a longer system of months. Their months are shorter than ours. They have more months. They have 20 days in their months, and I'm not really explaining this very well. You don't necessarily need to know how all of this stuff works, other than I can tell you that their calendar is exactly as accurate as the one that we use today. This is evident of very advanced Maya understanding of astronomy and how to record time. They have long seasons and long years, and then they have the epic period and epic cycle, which is 5,200 something years long. This, by the way, is where we get to the crazy, it's the end of the world kind of thing. When the Maya calendar was ending in 2012 and the world was going crazy and everybody's like, we're all going to die, that was silly. What happened at that point is the first big phase of the Maya calendar ended. And it didn't really symbolize anything except a period of transition. This was not the end of the world. The Maya didn't have some big prediction that 2012 was going to be the end of civilization as we know it. It was just, this is where our calendar ends, right? So they were off by 8 years. Oh, man. Oh, so true. This is the way the world ends, not with a bang, but with a whimper, right? That comes from my favorite T.S. Eliot poem, by the way. I really like T.S. Eliot. He's a good poet. The poem is called, well, I don't know. Maybe I'll let you all look it up. I don't want to give you away all the cool stuff, right? Just give you a taste and then let you go dig it up. By the way, I haven't seen anybody try to work out the super hidden giant nerd stuff. For those of you that weren't here at the very beginning, let me remind you that the title "To Call Me Baby," of course being just a joke by itself, has a deeper nerdy meaning that references something specific to Maya culture. So if you can dig it up, I'll give you points. I think I can actually give you channel points. I don't know. I'll have to figure out how to do that. I was just going to give you brownie points, but I might actually give you channel points. How about that? You can do something with them. Okay, so when we get to about 250 AD, you're going to hit what we call classical Maya culture. And by the time you get to this period of time, the region of Central America is an incredibly urban landscape. I know I said that I was going to turn off these boundaries, but I think I'll actually just leave them up. I kind of like them being there. And this whole region is going to be linked together both by roads and by trade. And the cities of this region, especially some of the really big cities like Tikal, which is actually a very big city, by the way. It's in Guatemala, right over here by the border of Belize, and we'll look at it in just a second. Some of these big cities of the Maya are going to have 100,000 people living in them, which is absolutely crazy for ancient world sort of populations. If you compare these two culturally equivalent cities, so let's look at what London looks like about 200 AD. London was a not cool place. Now today, of course, London is like the capital of England, and it's an amazing city. And I'm not trying to like down London at all. I'd love to go there. But that's a city that we sort of think of as, you know, this amazing place. Tikal had probably double the population of London at this period of time. Tikal was on a playing field with cities like Rome in certain periods of time. This is a huge, huge point in these people's lives. And of course, when you have all of these big cities, you're also going to have lots of fighting. And this is where all of the big wars start happening. The classical Maya period is marked by lots of fighting amongst these big cities, which have formed kingdoms and are trying to figure out if they can do the empire game. Now, there is never really one unified Mayan empire. You don't see that like you might see an Egyptian empire or a Babylonian empire or a Greek empire, right? You don't have one big monolithic Maya structure. Okay, so I think it's actually very easy to compare those to Rome or London. If I went back to ancient Rome and I had 200 men that were armed with steel armor and had cannons and muskets, I could wipe out all of the Romans. I could blow up an entire Roman legion before they walked across a field to get to me. I could conquer. Okay, so let's say who else would be around that same level? If I went back to Sumeria, and I found Sumeria around, let's say, the beginning of the Assyrian Empire, which is a very big cosmopolitan empire at the end of the Bronze Age, about 1200 BC. If I took 200 trained men with guns and cannons into Assyria, I would destroy them. The threat of guns against people without guns is crazy. And it wasn't just 200 people, by the way. We'll talk about this a little bit more, but I can hit you right now with a little bit. The Spanish conquered Central America over the span of about 100 years, and after investing tens of thousands of men. The 200 number that you're talking about might be in specific reference to Hernan Cortez, who took out the Aztecs, but he also took their capital city and held their king hostage. And if you know anything about the Aztec people, they thought that the sun basically only rose because of the king's relationship to the gods. So if they killed the king without another king there, it might literally be the end of the world. So Cortez also didn't conquer all of the Aztecs. He took out their capital city, and then it took Spain sending lots more people over there to finally wipe them out. It wasn't just 200 people. And then you also, again, have to bring in diseases, which killed a lot of people. But Cortez didn't conquer all of the Aztecs. He took out their capital city and then declared himself emperor. And the king and queen of Spain pretty much let him sit there until he exhausted himself and then had to ask for help. And then they sent over an entire army. So it's not like 200 guys are wiping out an entire civilization. What kind of empire gets tricked by 200 gangsters and loses its king like that? Pretty backwards, to be honest. Well, I mean, I could point at any number of empires that fall because of dumb stuff, right? What happens when nobody wants to fight on your side because they think that everybody else has got magical powers and is going to kill you? Yeah. No. It's okay. And I'm not trying to get on your case. Just trying to explain this a little bit in a more broad context. I never want to get mad. I'm definitely not mad. It takes a lot to get me upset. Western diseases played a bigger role than guns. The diseases did definitely play a role in it, absolutely. Boomsticks. Yeah, boomsticks are bad. This is a boomstick. Smallpox is greater than boomsticks. Trying to think of other empires that fell for reasons other than dumb stuff. Yeah, right. People declaring themselves to be, gods, and then somebody else destroying them. I mean, if you want to look at it in a certain way, look at what happened in Tokugawa Japan, right? The Tokugawa ruled Japan for 260 something years, and then one dude with one little army took over all of Japan and reclaimed the power of the emperor, right? So, I mean, guns versus no guns is a big deal. And Nobunaga, when he was unifying Japan, did so because he had guns and he was fighting people without guns. So, yeah, I mean, it's a pretty big deal. So you proved my point that they were backwards by them thinking Westerners had magic power and fearing to fight them. So the concept of thinking that something is magical is not backwards. That's a bit of a modern anachronism, because magic as we understand it today didn't really leave scientific culture in a lot of people's worlds until the very, very modern age. I mean, Christianity was still selling relics that supposedly healed people magically by the power of God all the way through, the Enlightenment period, until people kind of pushed aside icons, right? Magic is just a way of understanding the world without knowing the science behind it, right? There's a little bit of evidence to that. So just because a culture believes in something religiously at a particular point in time doesn't mean that they're backwards. If you look at any given real culture, so look at the Romans, right? The Romans, the big, super powerful Romans. They conquered all of the Mediterranean world. They put together this big empire that stretched over 3 continents, and they were stupid paranoid. They wouldn't even bury their people within the city walls because they were afraid that the dead would haunt them, right? They thought that one of their entire armies lost because some guy threw some chickens overboard. This is the belief in magic is not a backwards thing. It's just something that, people still believe in magic, right? I'm losing the chat. They were probably very intrigued by the Spanish Wars. Yeah, and again, the people in the New World had never seen horses, and this is a big deal. They thought that the sails of Cortez to be Quetzalcoatl. Yeah, so there's a lot of that other stuff too. Greeks fought 2 million Persian invaders in 2000 before the Mayans fear the magical powers. Yeah, but again, the Greeks started their settlement almost 20,000 years before the Maya did. And the Greeks that you're talking about did not develop as culturally quickly as the Maya did. If you put the earliest Greek foundation of the first villages in Greece somewhere probably in the late 300s, like 3700 BC, and then the big classical cities of the Greece, like Greeks that you're talking about in the 400s and 300s, that's 2,700 years. The Mayas had cities that were the same size as Athens or Thebes, but they did the same thing in less than 1,500 years, right? So, 2,000 years, winged serpent god. Yes, winged serpent god is Quetzalcoatl. Any technology sufficiently advanced is indistinguishable from magic. Right. Arthur C. Clarke. I don't know what that was related to, but maybe. I don't know where that comes from. Funny Romans, funny cousins. Yeah. What's the difference between Maya and Aztec? These are just different words of different groups of people. The Maya were one group of people. The Aztec were a different group of people. The Aztec are going to be in power after the Maya world starts to sort of fall apart. The Aztec take over part of the Maya world as well. And they're much more bloodthirsty. Maybe the Aztec could be something else that we could talk about. Okay, so that was a bit of diversion, but a fun diversion. Lots of good back and forth there. I can appreciate this. I like this kind of stuff. So, alrighty. Where are we? Teotihuacan. There we go. So Teotihuacan. Oh, I'm spelling this wrong. Teotihuacan is going to be a big threat during this period of classical Maya world. If you look at Teotihuacan, it's up here. Oop, that's not where I'm supposed to be clicking. I'm supposed to be clicking over here. It is up here in Mexico, in the Tabasco region. There we are. And this is a very, very large city, and they're going to sort of move down into the Maya world during this period of time and cause a lot of trouble. The question here is whether or not Teotihuacan is actually a Maya city or not. There's a lot of cultural exchange between Teotihuacan and the Maya people. There are clearly some Maya people that live up there, but we don't know if it's just a big city or if it's an empire or exactly what their population looks like. But Teotihuacan is going to experience a lot of power during this period of time. And this is another one of these cities that you can go to. I've lost a lot of stuff again here. The Greeks had a more advanced civilization than the Mayans. Even in the Neolithic era, Shane, they developed literature in the Bronze Age. Have you ever heard of the epic poems of Homer? Okay, so I think you're misunderstanding what I'm saying here. All right. So what I'm saying is eliminate the timeline. So just eliminate the whole concept of timeline. And clearly, and just purely look at the number of years, right? So let's just say I'm 36 years old, right? I've got a friend that's 38 years old, right? And let's eliminate the timeline. And I say, in 36 years, I have accomplished this. And it took my friend 38 years to accomplish that. So I have done this 2 years faster than him, right? Not comparing the actual dates, just comparing it in the number of years. What I'm saying is that the Maya people express a lot of these cultural benchmarks just as fast or faster than other Western cultures. So if we eliminate all timelines, so like if we throw out Bronze Age terminology, Neolithic terminology, if we're just looking at how long it took from the first time you see a village to the first time you see writing, right? So the first time you see a village in the Maya world is going to be somewhere around the 1800 mark. And then it only takes them 1600 years or so to get to writing, right? So if we look at other big cultures, like let's say India. We talked about India last week, right? So if you look at the first villages in India with the Harappan people, their first villages are going to show up around 7,000 BC. And their first writing is going to show up around 3,000 BC. So it takes them 4,000 years to go from first village to writing. So that 4,000 year mark is much longer than the 1,600 year mark it took for the Mayans to do the same sort of thing, right? Does that explain it a little bit better? I'm not talking about like if you take 1 year in history and say in 200 AD, let's take all of the cultures in the world and compare them together. You're clearly going to get a lot of different balances of power at that time. The Romans are going to be losing a lot of their power, but at the same time, the Han Dynasty over in China is going to be controlling about half of the region. Fabulously wealthy, giant powerhouse. So I'm not talking about picking 1 year and comparing everybody. I'm just talking about the timelines here. The Spanish laid this Aztec city of Tenochtitlan, modern-day Mexico City, right under siege for a long time. Several weeks. They ruined Xochimilco by destroying it, the dam that held back the Brac. Right. So, you have a lot of this other kind of stuff that's playing into the larger sort of Spanish conquest. How long did the Greeks exist as a civilization before they wrote first poems? 900 to 1,000 years. I don't think that we're going to be able to see eye to eye here, man, and that's okay. I think that it's perfectly fine for us to have different interpretations of history. I think that another problem is that we're not able to communicate in real time. And I think that one of the problems is that we're using different terminology, and that's okay, man. I absolutely respect everybody. Everybody is perfectly cool to have your own versions of the world. I'm just trying to put things in a little bit of perspective, and that's cool. I don't know how much more we're going to be able to get on this conversation. Maybe we could catch up on Discord or something one day and actually have like a real-time back and forth. Maybe that'll help us sort of come to a middle happy ground here. Because I don't know if I'm just explaining myself wrong or if I'm interpreting what you're saying wrong. So much of this stuff has, like, what am I trying to say here? It has tonal differences, right? Like I can't hear how you're saying stuff, so I don't know how to interpret it the exact right way. I don't want to take you out of context. I don't want to be that guy that goes, well, you're just being a jerk, because I don't think you're being a jerk, but you know how that is. So let's kind of come back to our Maya discussion and kind of talk here about Teotihuacan. So these people are going to come in from the outside. Somewhere in the 300s AD, you're going to, especially the late 300s AD, Teotihuacan is going to do a lot of damage to people in the Patan Basin, which I referenced over here, and I'm doing that thing again where I point to my screen and you can't see where I'm pointing. Over here, also into some of the big cities of the Maya people. And these Teotihuacanis are going to be pretty disruptive. They're going to install some puppet leaders in some of these big cities of the Maya people. They're going to play a lot with who gets to trade where. A lot of the big cities of the Maya are going to have access to certain trade goods that are very, very desirable, especially stuff like obsidian, which we'll talk about in just a little bit. And during this period of time, you're going to start seeing the Maya world sort of pull itself into groups. And there are going to be two really big cities that are going to be kind of the poles, if you will. So there's Tikal, which I've already referenced. And, man, I cannot spell when I type on this. There's Calakmul, which is another big Maya city. And Tikal is mostly going to be sort of in the southern part of the Maya world and have its allies down in the southern part. And Calakmul is going to be up in the northern part and kind of have its own little group of alliances. Sometimes these two big cities are going to operate proxy wars amongst their allies to try to get at each other. Sometimes they're going to spy on each other and try to overthrow rulers and assassinate leaders. And they're also going to start colonization. They're going to send out their own people to sort of try to block off trade routes by moving their population around and establishing bases of power. So you're going to see a lot of that stuff. So Xochimilco is an example of a big technological accomplishment of the Aztecs, by the way. The excavations at Teotihuacan have shown that it was a very metropolitan city, lots of mixed cultures. Right. That there was an ethnic neighborhood populated by people from regions Veracruz, Monte Alban, and Oaxaca. Still believed to commemorate the viral... Yeah, right. So this is what I'm saying. Like, it's hard for us to understand exactly who these people at Teotihuacan were. And they did. This is great. I am going to have a very hard time attempting to pronounce your name, sir. I don't know if you've ever, sir. Can I call you Fakuma? How should I address you? Let me ask that. How should I... And welcome to the show, by the way. How can I address you? Or give me a... Don't. Call me Gene. Sounds great, Gene. I always try to be respectful of how I call people. So yes, Gene is correct here that Teotihuacan is a very, very big city and has a lot of different mix of people going on there. And they also had a lot of regional power based on trade, but also based on military power. So Tikal and Calakmul, big cities in the north and south sort of moving around. This time you're also going to get a sort of explosion of really big cities. This is sort of the hallmark of the classical Maya period, right? big cities, lots of people. Cities like Copan and Koba, all sorts of places that you can still go visit today. I have been for the last few years really, really itching to go to Belize and Guatemala to go see a lot of these things. I would love to bring the adventure hat down there and take some really cool pictures. Now it's probably not the best time to travel, but for all purposes, it looks like a pretty nice place to go. Belize and Guatemala would be a nice little trip. You could probably do the whole thing in a couple of weeks. If you're interested, I've got places to go see. Really cool places. All right. So why then do these big cities go away? There's the question. Because around the end of this classical period, which is somewhere around 900 AD, you're going to see a pretty big drop in overall Maya population. And a lot of these big cities, especially the cities down in the south of the southern region, especially which is down here on like the Guatemalan Pacific coastline, these regions down in here, you're going to start seeing the population drop pretty badly. And there are 5 or 6 really big theories that go into this. But the problem with all of these theories is that we can't prove really very many of any of them. You can prove parts of some. Some people say that the reason that the classical Maya civilization drops in population is because of political instability, that the big rulers had a hard time keeping all these people motivated and moving in one direction, which has some validity. Other people point at invaders. People like to point at the growing power in Mexico, especially places like Teotihuacan. These big sort of expansion-minded people that are looking at the Maya world and saying these are ripe for the picking, which has some validity in it as well, but you also don't see a lot of destruction in some of these big cities. It looks more like the cities were kind of just abandoned. You see some climatologists saying that there was a really big drought, especially a drought that affected the highlands, making a lot of the mountainous regions less easy to access and farm. So the maize population or production would have dropped, which of course has a negative effect on your population. And of course, then there's the idea that because all of these ancient people were crammed together in cities, it's just hard to keep anything like that going if a plague comes through, right? And I think that we're all aware of how the effects of our current pandemic issue are playing, especially in really big cities. Antigua, Guatemala is an amazing, accessible, safe city for foreign tourists. Right, and that's one of the places I'd like to fly into Belize and then sort of make a loop through Belize and then up into Guatemala and back through Tikal and then back into the southern part of Belize and then fly out. I spent some time in Antigua. It's a living time capsule. It's near some beautiful geography. There we go. I'd like to visit Central America as well. Well, let's go together then. I'd love to go hang out and climb some Maya temples respectfully and not get up there and take selfies and post them to Instagram, but I'd like to experience that kind of history. So regardless of how all of these big cities started moving down, the population, especially again in the southern region of the Maya world, is going to drop precipitously. A lot of these big cities that had hundreds of thousands of people, well, not hundreds of thousands, I apologize, that's too much, that had over 100,000 people in them are going to drop really, really low. Some of the big cities that were very, very important prior times, like Kamanalhuyu, is almost completely abandoned, and it looks like only a few dozen family groups sort of took up residence in some of the temples. And this was a really big city. This was a cultural center of the Maya people, but it's now completely gone. So what then do you get? Well, after this sort of height of the classical Maya period, you move into what people call the post-classical period, but I don't even really like that term. you move into just something different, right? And you're going to see new cities that are going to be taking over. Oh, in the midst of all of this, I have forgotten to show you photographs. So let me pause and let's catch up with our pictures. So again, this is the Maya calendar. Here, what you see is a rebel flight crew guy checking the flight path of the Millennium Falcon through a jungle on Yavin 4. And you see these temples in the background here. Well, that's actually a big Mayan city. It's called Tikal. This is what it looks like if you go visit it today. The Mayans were space colonists. Oh, man. They... I don't think they were space colonists, but there are a lot of ancient astronauts that the guy on History Channel, I can't remember what his name is, that always pushes the ancient astronaut theory, loves showing pictures of Maya stuff. Anyway, so this is Tikal. Again, this is in Guatemala, a really cool place. One of the bigger tourist sites in the Maya world, and where they filmed parts of Star Wars, which of course means that I want to go there even more because, you know, I'm a giant Star Wars nerd too. So, you know, what you see in Star Wars, you can see in the real world. This is actually from a city that I'll start referencing here. In this post-classical time period, you're going to see a sort of shift in centers of population and importance. And this is a big city right here in what is modern-day Mexico. And it is called Chichen Itza, which I've typed here for us. This is going to be one of the more important cities in this sort of post-classical world. It's also why I want to visit Tunisia. Guilty as charged. Also, really cool Roman stuff in Tunisia. You've been to Tunisia? Oh, I am so jealous. Very, very jealous. That's Tatooine for those of you that aren't up on the Star Wars nerddom. And that's okay. Not everybody has to be as big of a nerd as I am. So, Chichen Itza, it's one of the northern Maya cities. Oh, you've been to Chichen Itza? Oh, well, I'm still jealous. I'd love to go to all of these places. This is a big cultural center, and it sort of takes over as the cultural heartland of the Maya people for a little while. And instead of our big power struggle between Tikal and Calakmul, you're going to have a struggle between Chichen Itza and another city called Mayapan. And these two cities are going to be kind of the new cultural leaders from about the 900s to about the 1400s. Chichen Itza is going to initially be really powerful. It's going to be the sort of out-of-the-gate leader for about 300 years, from about 900 to about the 1200s. Mayapan is going to sort of take over that leading position for the 1200s to about the time that the Spanish start showing up. But this period of time in Mayan history is going to change a lot of the way that they do stuff. Let's see. Antigua is great. Spent 5 weeks there years ago. So much to see and do. Cool. Stayed in a hotel. $3 a night. Nice. Traveling in Latin America is affordable even for the most modest budget. Into the Maya terminal classic period is about the same time as the drought that ended in a style. Yeah. Dendrochronology, right. So dendrochronology is using the rings of trees to assume certain things about climate. And there was a period of time that it got really dry. So there is a lot of climatological evidence that points at the dry spell here. Every time Shane mentions how big of a nerd he is, it sounds like a challenge. No, it shouldn't. It's mostly It's mostly me apologizing for myself because I know that I can come across very, very nerdy at times. And I like to be very upfront about who I am. I own myself. I am proud of my nerdiness. I've always suspected that similar weather patterns could have affected the Maya, which could explain the increase in warfare due to resource scarcity. Right. And that's actually where we're headed because during this period of time, this sort of post-classical Maya world, you're going to see a really big increase in warfare, especially around the 1300s. You're going to see big conflicts between some of these really big Maya cities where, they have big armies of thousands of men that are going to go out and try to fight each other. You're also going to see a new structural type of building. You're going to start seeing, and not individual building, I mean building and architecture. I should have said a new type of architectural in the Maya world. You're going to see a lot more cities built up in hills, on tops of hills, with big walls, especially fortified earthworks with stonework on top of them. So when you start seeing a lot of these really big cities building big walls, you don't build walls unless you need walls, right? Well, nope, I'm not going to go there. I had a moment to soapbox politically and I didn't do it. I'm proud of myself. Anyway, so this 1400 period of time in the Maya world is going to be marked by a lot of violence. And it could be exactly what Gene referenced here, this sort of general scarcity of goods from a drier period of time. And nerd power, exactly. You're also going to start seeing the leadership of a lot of these big Maya cities change. And instead of having one sort of king that's overall powerful, you're going to start seeing a lot of the cities use royal councils, where the king will have a system of advisors that share a lot of the executive power with him, and they make these decisions almost as a little bit of a committee. And this could also be a response to scarcity, because you don't necessarily want one person who is super bloodthirsty to be able to make a decision that might cause an entire city's population to go without food. Right, so if you have a really bloodthirsty king who's all about going out and conquering, you don't want that person to have unlimited control. You want somebody else to sort of rein in that power. And when things get scarce, it's good to get varying opinions to help yourself figure out who and what and where, right? So these ruling councils are going to sort of take over as the leadership position of the Maya world. And of course, this is going to lead us to the early 1500s. The first contact between Maya people and the Spanish happens in 1511. There's a shipwreck where some Spanish soldiers run into some Maya people. But this is going to very quickly turn into an active attempt at conquest. And from the early 1500s, especially starting at about 1517, for about 40 years, the Spanish are going to send lots of different patrols of varying strengths, thousands of people, to target specific Maya cities. There are several different conquistadors that are going to be sent by the Spanish crown to bring the Maya under control. And the last of their big cities is going to fall in 1697. So the Maya people don't disappear at the end of that point, right? They've basically just been pushed out of their cities, many of which are the sites of modern Spanish cities, like Gene referenced here with Tenochtitlan, the big Aztec city. Mexico City's right on top of it. And this happens a lot. Kaminalhuyu is under a modern-day city. So a lot of the Spanish settlement places are going to take place in already existing cities. Now, of course, this does destroy a lot of the culture, and it's going to make it very hard for the Maya people to have any sort of individual cultural identity because the Spanish are going to start pushing it down their throat. So just as a bit of an overview here, I did want to talk a little bit about just the Maya culture in specific. They do have a lot of war, and the concept of warriors is pretty big in their world, and they use particularly interesting types of weapons sometimes made out of wood, but other times made out of this stuff, which is, of course, obsidian, or if you watch Game of Thrones, dragon glass. Obsidian is made from volcanic activity. It can be mined, and it can be shaped into some pretty wicked weapons. This is a sword here, but it could also be used in as spear points. The Maya had bows and arrows, but they didn't really use them for warfare until that later period of tumult, the 12, 13, 1400 period of time. They usually just used the bows and arrows for hunting. They also had blowguns with poison that they used for both hunting and warfare. They had lots of clubs. Some of the weapons that they use are similar to weapons that the later people like the Aztec would use. So if you've ever seen a cricket bat, if you can imagine a cricket bat, imagine rectangular chunks of this obsidian sort of placed into the side of that cricket bat, so you make a rudimentary bashing, slashing weapon. They had those. They also had atlatls, which are more or less arm-powered spear chuckers to make your spear throw more accurate and more powerful and give it more distance. And you can also have quite a bit of luck in warfare just by, the good old-fashioned beating each other over the head with stuff. Their armor was pretty rudimentary. They're going to use mostly hardened leather. They had a particular technique that they used where they would take the leather and prepare it and get it into shape, and then use salt water and other stuff to harden the leather. And though obsidian is a very, very sharp mineral and it will cut the fire out of you, it's not as durable as something like a metal blade. A lot of these weapons made out of obsidian might be limited use. You probably would not have the same obsidian sword for your entire life, right? You got to get that tangential velocity up, right? You got to get that spear going. Warfare was very important for a lot of these leaders, especially the early kings, but even the later classical kings are going to tie their power to how good of a provider they are. And a lot of how they provided for their people was through warfare. There are also going to be reasons of human sacrifice. The Maya religion was perfectly fine with sacrificing humans. Now, they're not going to be as active as this as you might find in other people like the Aztec later on, but you're going to see them especially doing lots of blood sacrifices and sometimes human sacrifices. And it was good to have enemy combatants that you had captured to do these human sacrifices on. The governments that you might see in a Maya world are going to be very different. Depending on what city you are in and what time you are in, you're not going to find one government that covers all of the Maya world. They're all going to have slightly different takes on things. They had a lot of words in their vocabulary that would, look like things like minister or secretary or things that you might find in a modern day government, like representative or senator. But the way that those words are used in different Maya cities seems to be different, depending on where you are and when you are, right? But what's pretty common in most of these big cities is some level of aristocracy, the rich people, right? There was a pretty clearly developed class structure in the Mayan world. The poor people were at the bottom, but by the time you got to the later part of the classical world and into the post-classical world, there's actually going to be a middle class in a lot of these big Mayan cities. Then, of course, you have the aristocracy, and it seems that the aristocracy probably had a lot of weight when it came to warfare, and we don't know if that's just because you want to be the guy that stands behind the army and points and tells them, or if this was sort of another cultural aspect that the people who lead and do well in war are just better people, or it could be a mixture of both. Their religion is pretty cool, and I've mentioned the Popol Vuh. I'll throw that out again. But they do have a very big pantheon of gods. dozens of gods, lots of involved mythology. I've got a picture here. Let me switch back over to images, and I'll show you one of these. And this is going to serve as a dual purpose picture. I told you earlier that they did some fresco painting stuff. So here's an example of one of these frescoes. And this is the creator god, whose name is Itzamna. And he was the god of the sky and the god of creation. You see him here with food. Of course, this is synonymous with production. And he's got the really cool big headdress going on. But this is a pretty good example here of a fresco. And you would find these sorts of things all over buildings. And not just all over big important buildings, but also a lot of the just kind of everyday, more mundane buildings, like government buildings that aren't a big palace or a temple, would have decorations. Some of the aristocracy homes had these big frescoes in them that depicted symbols of particular glorious achievement or pictures of the gods, stuff like this. So there was a pretty clear love of art for the Maya people. The obsidian of the mines at Teotihuacan were probably fine-grained glass, so it could be used to make a particularly sharp tool, right? Cores for tool making, a large rock with usable cortex knocked off first, have been found in caches buried as far away as Minnesota. Right, because these guys trade with everybody. And especially once you get into the AD time period, and I know I'm getting a little bit off topic here, but this is getting into a world that I love. There's a particular group of people in North America called the Mississippian Mound Building people, and they had trade networks that stretched from Mexico to Canada. Their big capital city was at a place called Cahokia, which is in modern-day Illinois. But you find stuff like this, right? Really, really cool stuff. Big, vast trade networks, lots of population, big advance in society, middle class, all kinds of cool stuff. So again, the religion, to sort of wrap up here, I won't go into all the different pieces of mythology because that's a whole other stream by itself to just talk about Maya religion and Maya mythology, because we do have really, really good records of a lot of this stuff. And if you're interested, I encourage you to go do some looking on your own. Their religion is tied again to their royal families. Their writing, of course, is super important. It has allowed us to understand the Maya people in a way that we don't have a lot of understanding in a lot of other cultures in the world. They wrote a lot about themselves. And one of the things that I can point to the writing as being particularly useful, one of the ways that we know that there was such a big decline in the Mayan cities at the time is by looking at the buildings. Again, the buildings would have sort of placards that would say, built by so-and-so king, finished in so-and-so year, and we can watch the number of buildings that are going up in these cities drop year by year and decade by decade. And by the time you get to about 900, there might be 10 buildings built in the entire, Maya system of cities, which is really, really low when you compare it to 80 buildings being built in one city in 1 year back in the height of the classical period. So this writing is super important. You're going to see stela all over the place. Kings are going to use the stela for political reasons and religious reasons and propaganda reasons. You're also going to get really cool records. So there are actually histories. I should pause here. I'm using a wrong term. They're mostly chronicles. And when I say chronicle here, what I mean is something along the lines of year so-and-so of King so-and-so. Here are the things that he did. Not necessarily a narrative version of history that you might find in a history book, but a chronicle of duties or actions of the government. Big battles that were fought, buildings that were gone up, particularly important religious occurrences, like there was an eclipse this year and the priest interpreted it to mean this. So there's a lot of really nice stuff written in the Maya world. All right, so that brings us to a conclusion of my portion of the discussion. I think we got some pretty good stuff in there. I appreciate the suggestion from my viewers to talk about the Maya people. And it is time for us to discuss what we should do on our next viewer request episode. Just as a note, I think I'm probably going to take Tuesday next week off. So I don't think that we'll do a viewer request next week. Mostly because this is going to be the last week that I have before I have to start classes again in the summer. So I do want to have a little bit of a summer break. If that seems jealous or selfish, I apologize. We will still have a Thursday stream on next week, but probably not a probably not a viewer request episode on Tuesday. So Thursday stream next week is good. Also Thursday stream this week is good. Tulsa Dune. Random history fact has been redeemed. Local history. Oh man, you mean local to you or local to me? I'll just interpret that as local to me, and I'll be very jealous here. So, buyer's choice. Well, you're the buyer. You bought it. Dealer's choice would be up to me. Let's just go with Hattiesburg. So the city that I live in is called Hattiesburg, Mississippi. It was founded mostly as a hub between several other very large cities, and for the majority of the early 1800s, there was a big lumber boom in the region. The region of Mississippi that I live in is called the Pine Belt. But your unique history fact, and you might know this already, KP, so I don't feel like, if you feel like I'm jilting you here, I might give you another one. Well, large cities comparatively. Hattiesburg is a very small city. Somewhere, I don't actually know how many people live in Hattiesburg right now. I would guess probably about 60,000 in the Hattiesburg greater metropolitan area. That seems about right. I might be way off on that. Anyway, Hattiesburg, Mississippi, 45,951. There we go. So I guess if you throw in Petal and Summerall, we'd probably get to about 60,000, 65,000. So I'm going to claim that I made a B on that guess. So close, but not quite. Anyway, Hattiesburg, Mississippi was the location of the last officially sanctioned bare knuckle boxing fight in the United States. So there you go, between a guy named Sullivan and a guy named Kilrain. So the last bare knuckle, you did not know that. Oh, cool. Well, there you go. So if you know where Sullivan Kilrain Road is over in Oak Grove, Dixie area, I don't actually know who won. That's a great question. Now I'm going to have to Google it. It was on July the 8th, 1889. And the fight went on for 2 hours and 18 minutes. Good gosh, can you imagine beating on each other for 2 hours and 18 minutes? Sullivan won. There you go. Or did they both lose because they were bare knuckle fighting? I think that might be the case, Gene. I think that might be the case. Oh, man. It was 103 degrees on that fight day, and it lasted 75 rounds. I do like watching martial arts, especially, when I can. I don't have pay-per-view stuff very frequently because it's just so expensive, but I do like watching UFC stuff. I also like the Olympics when they have the Olympics. I like watching the judo stuff. I also like watching Muay Thai and Taekwondo. Oh man, favorite boxer, MMAer? I might have to take the low road because I'm super Irish and say Conor McGregor. I like his swagger. I like the fact that he was willing to go up against one of the best boxers in the world and not be afraid of it. He did get his face pummeled, and he didn't really have any business fighting in a boxing match, but it took some chutzpah to get up there and do that. He talks a lot, and he did get wrecked. He did get wrecked. But if the roles were reversed and that fight had been a MMA fight, it could have gone very differently. When you take away a grappler's grappling ability, that changes. But I'm getting way off topic, and that's okay. So what we do need to do, I wonder if bare knuckle fights have less punches thrown and are more conservative since you're risking your hand or getting your face broken. Maybe so. Tyson Fury just signed on to fight Mike Tyson, who is 53 years old. Weird world that we live in. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, one of the things that we need to do before we leave is select a topic for our next viewer request episode. And I had already a couple of responses, which were our first viewer request episode, which we covered Slavic mythology, and then our second viewer request episode, which is tonight, where we talked about the Maya people. And there was another option that was on the initial list to talk about Vlad the Impaler, who I would like to carry over because I think that's a pretty interesting topic. But what I want from you all are about 3 more things that we can vote on. So we have Vlad the Impaler. What are other things that you would like to talk about? So I'll just take the first 3 that pop up in the chat. Lager, I said that Tyson Fury just signed up to fight Mike Tyson, the old, and I say old as in previous, the previous heavyweight boxing champion of the world. The Inca people? All right, I'll take it. Well, Vlad was already there. I'm definitely keeping Vlad Tepes on the list. Oh, no, you're good. Absolutely. I would... Yeah, Tyson Fury is fighting Mike Tyson. That's the plan. Tyson versus Tyson. All right. 2 more history requests of topics that you'd like to cover. Oh, like you literally want to talk about the... Oh, no. Like you're referring to the plot of Rocky Balboa. Okay. For a second there, I thought you might actually want to talk about the history of the movie Rocky. Which is not out of the question. Persian Wars? Athens versus Persia. Okay, I gotcha. So the classical Persian Wars. With Xerxes and Cyrus and all those cool guys. And the Punic Wars. Hey, there's a good one. All right, so I am about to open up the poll here, and I'm going to give everybody 2 minutes to vote. So when I start this, you'll need to go up to the top part of your stream chat and click the little down arrow, and you will see the options for the poll. And if you pick some votes, I will be able to determine what we should talk about next. I've only got 2 votes so far, now 3 votes, now 4 votes, and we're all tied at 1. Oh, now we've got a lead. By the way, my plan is to retain the topics that we don't cover and reuse them. So next time we have a viewer request episode, which won't be next Tuesday, but the following Tuesday, I will add one topic to the list here. And if something goes for 2 or 3 weeks without being selected, we'll take it off and add a new one. But the plan is to try our best to get around to as many viewer ideas as possible. Still have about a minute to vote if you haven't. Anybody can do this. You don't have to be a subscriber or a follower. Literally anybody within the sound of my voice can give a vote and pick who you want. Again, this is a poll up in the top of your chat. You just click a little down arrow and you should be able to find this stuff. Moray looks incredible. That's on the list one change. Yeah, Mac and the Lab Coat has been trying to get me to go to Peru for quite some time, and I do definitely want to go. Tiebreaker, but if that says please. Yeah, please do follow. That does help, absolutely. As well as the subscription stuff, that is actually money that I get, and I do appreciate it. I'm going to buy the next thing that I'm going to buy for the channel is a new webcam so that you can see, as my wife says, all of my cute little freckles. All right, it looks like Vlad the Impaler has inched out a win. So our next viewer request episode will be on Vlad the Impaler. Oh, Vlad Tepish. Pretty cool stuff. Alrighty. I hung out with Chuck Liddell in college before he got popular. Nice! I've heard that he's actually a lot nicer than it seems. For somebody that is a literal machine when it comes to beating the people up. Bare knuckle fighting. Oh, I've gone too far back in the chat. I was watching the poll go and I didn't keep up with my chat. Football was safer with helmets. Huh? Yeah. Tiebreaker sort of thing. Yes. Shane, this is dedicated to you. I don't know what this is. Let me see. Oh, that's my link for... I clicked the wrong link, I guess. Gene, it seems like you've done a lot of traveling around the Americas. Are you a historian or archaeologist or just interested in travel? Kaylee would vote for the Puppet Wars. That's great. I'll also vote for Pupper's Cam. Well, if you would like, you can redeem channel points to Let Slip the Puppy of War. Conor McGregor raps Notorious B.I.G. Oh, man. These are things that I love. I'm going to have to watch that. Okay, so the puppy has actually been summoned. Hey, do you want to come be on camera? Come and see me. Oh, she's so excited. Hello. Hello. Oh, the sugars. Oh, yes. I don't think you can tell, but the tail is waggling. Let me see if I can get the tail on the camera. No. Well, you can kind of see the tail waggling. Now she's getting upset because she doesn't like computers. Computers scare her for some reason. Especially computers that move. Come here. Come on. You did not get a good show. Come on. Come and see me. Oh, yes. There we go. Oh, yes. Oh, goodness. Yes, the Kaylee Poo. Again, she's named after Kaylee Fry from Firefly and Serenity. You studied anthropology as my undergrad degree. I studied in Mexico for a semester and got fluent in Spanish, which really opened up Latin America. Absolutely. Other people's pets are getting me through the pandemic. Kaylee is a mutt. She is part boxer and part terrier. We don't really know exactly who or what her parentage is because she is a rescue. One of Brittany's coworkers found her in a parking lot of an apartment complex, and we took her in. How much do I want for her? She's not technically my puppy. She is my wife's puppy. She lives in my house. I will not exchange money for the puppy. Gene, that sounds amazing. I would love to study anthropology. I briefly considered getting another master's degree in anthropology. There's a college here in Hattiesburg, University of Southern Mississippi, that has a really great anthropology program and does a lot of work, especially in Mexico City. And several other people in the chat are fluent in Spanish. I actually taught Spanish for quite some time. The best Spanish speaker in the room, that, to my knowledge, is Mac in a lab coat, who has been to Peru and Bolivia and Central America and Cuba, all over the place, and is a true fluent native level speaker of Spanish. I could understand what he's saying. I can't speak on the same level that he does, though. Yes, the dog does get on my nerves from time to time, but I would make my wife very upset if I gave away the puppy. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that is going to wrap me up for the night. No es verdad. I would say that Josh could pass as a Spanish speaker. Anyway, but that's just me. All right, let's see if we can raid anybody. Let's see if anybody is live. All right, so thank you, Shane. I learned a few things. I learned new things I don't understand, but if you have questions, you're welcome to ask right now, Vanity's Fall. I mean, I'm sort of done with the presentation, but I'd absolutely love to answer questions if you had any. If you don't want to kind of chat, like this, you're welcome to send me an email. I'd happy to type out as much as you would like. I'm also no questions and a million questions at the same time. We'll do it another time. Awesome. Another thing that I'm thinking about building is a Discord. Which is a sort of online meeting hub so that people can post pictures and ask questions, and we can actually have chat. Just not well-versed in history. Oh, no, that's perfectly fine. You don't have to be super great at history to show up and have fun and just and get some stuff. If I can explain something to you, please do. I'd love for this to be more of a conversation. I don't like the concept of this just being a lecture. So, any questions, I'd be happy to answer. Okie dokie. So, let's see. I have two options here that we could... Thank you for sharing your brain particles. You are very welcome for my brain particles. And if I had more, I would give them away. We have two potential raiders that we could... or raids that we could do. Well, it doesn't look like Kat is actually actively streaming yet. She's got her coming up thing. Let me see if she's actually going on there. She is in the process of setting up her stream. Well, I'll tell you what. Let me shoot the breeze here for just a second to give you all an option. So a few things about the Discord concept that I like is, number one, I can actually put up the outlines that I type as files that you can download, and I can put the pictures that I'm using in a file that you can look at later on if you want to look at them and kind of zoom in on them. I can also just take questions there and discuss stuff in that way. So there are options with the Discord. I'm going to look into it. I'm not sure if it's completely something that I could dive into head first. I'm not completely well versed in it, and I feel like there are people that are maybe even in the room that know it better than I do. And if you could have suggestions, I would be happy to take good suggestions. Every Twitch community has a Discord. I'm noticing that. I've been spending some time sort of getting around to different channels, and I've noticed that a lot of people have Discord stuff. If everybody knew history, we wouldn't need the chat. Oh, thanks, Mac in the lab coat. Vlad the Impaler next time. Yes. Well, not next time. On Thursday, we're talking about Hinduism. And next viewer request episode, we'll do Vlad the Impaler. And yeah, we've mostly used Discord to sort of game. Mexico City is a great place for a long weekend trip. Museo de Antropológica, Museo de Templo Mayor, Teotihuacan is a day trip. Tohula, Pueblo, oh yeah. Pyramid of the Sun, Teotihuacan, yeah. I'm jealous of your travels, my friend. But welcome. And if you ever want to come on the stream and talk about stuff, that might be something that we can accommodate. Feel free to send me an email or send me some DMs on Instagram or Twitter or however you would like. Okay, so Cat is now active. We have two options. One option is Art of Lee, the guy that we rated last Thursday. He is currently drawing a mecha. He has an entire series of mecha that he's doing, and one is for each sign of the zodiac. Apparently the one for tonight is the Aquarius. And another is Cat, who is a very nice, interesting artist who claims to have been raised by pigeons, which is amazing. She does really, really great colored pencil work. Right now she's working on a pteronaut picture, which is pretty beautiful. So I will let you all decide. Should we raid Cat or should we raid Lee? You tell me. One final joke. Do I need to tell one final joke, or will I listen to one final joke? Why can you never trust the stairs? I don't know. Why not? Because they'll always let you down? I've got a Spanish joke. Hit me with a Spanish joke. ¿Es en español? Oh, because they're always up to something. Oh. I got you. ¿Cuál animal del mundo es lo más infiel? No sé. ¿Cuál animal? It's a... Oh. Yeah, that's a good one. Stop it, Baxter. You don't speak Spanish. ¿Por qué? I think our jokes are extra-dimensional torture. No. There is no torture. There's always the classic up dog. This is true. Porque cada pájaro tiene dos. Oh. Muy bien, Gene. Muy bien. Alrighty. So I have two votes for Cat. So let's raid Cat. She is very polite. Fair warning. She has the stream for mature content because she says adult words. I personally say adult words all the time when I'm not on stream, but I recognize that some people have children that would like to listen to the stream, so I try to keep everything in the stream here PG. Please don't take any offense from that. That's not my intent. But we will go raid Cat, and let me see what I can do here. I'm trying to figure out all these fun little buttons, but I'm going to go ahead and start the raid, and then I'm going to switch to my outro. And if you have them, throw up the adventure hat emotes, and we will yell adventure. And then do some adventure hats. How about that? Sound like a plan to everybody? So the hats, and then adventure. All right. Thank you all very, very much. This has been a great chat and a great stream, and I appreciate everybody. You all make this very easy. I will see you all next time around, which is Thursday, 7 p.m. CST, right? So let me hit this start raid button. And I will see you all next time. Thanks very much. Have a good one.